If you've ever had
show a massive power outage occurred in London, but you might not be aware because, of course, the mainstream media doesn't cover it because they don't cover things when they're test runs because they don't want people to know that's what they're doing. And I'll get more into it in 1 second. I just want everyone to know that I did a video yesterday on this certain something that's in a lot of food products that's popping up with magnets. And I got a strike initially. I actually won the strike. So the video got taken down last night. So some people may have come to look for the video and not found it. The video is now up. I rarely win appeals, but I tried a new strategy. Let's just say #LoveWins to try and manipulate, of course, the system and whoever's reviewing it. So I actually got the strike taken down. It won't work quite often, but it did work this time, especially since they gave me a strike for the 1-9er, even though the video was about stuff and food, you know, because they're pretty afraid of that substance that I was talking about because they don't want people to figure that out. So that video is now back up. And another thing is that usually when that happens, I have a video on standby that I put up. I leave them unlisted and I put it live to tell everyone out there that I got a strike and where they can find me. Well, YouTube's finally caught on and they've blocked you from being able to put a video live that's unlisted when you get a strike. So I wasn't able to make anyone aware. So for the time being, just definitely now make sure you subscribe to the blue background channel. Take a minute to pause the video, go over there, click sub, come back. I'll wait for you. All right, hopefully you did that. That was pretty quick, but still. Please make sure you do that. Let's get into the video here. So I've been talking about the EMP attacks. The dangers of it obviously are when the grid gets shut down, it's going to be a long-term thing, but the grid is going to come back on. People are confused by that. They're saying, well, why would they shut the grid down if they want everyone connected to the internet? Well, first of all, part of the 5G implementation here is for an EMP attack, okay? It's going to help enhance it. But secondly, the grid is going to come back on. A great famine that they create deliberately to destroy everything will lead to a great reset. When people start to realize that they don't have food and they don't have water and they don't know how to do that on their own, they will turn to the government. Even people who are awake will turn to the government. That's what's scary about this because they won't be prepared. That's why I want everyone out there to make sure that they're prepared while they still have time to prepare. You will regret it if you don't. If the grid is down for even a week, most people don't have a week's worth supply of food in their own home. Most people this day and age have been socially engineered to constantly get food on the go, to get Uber Eats, to depend on fast food or restaurants all the time instead of having food ready and available or stockpiled. Nobody does that anymore. And you know, you might say, well, why would I want to stockpile food? Well, for situations that are going to occur in the near future. And I guarantee that this is going to go down, I think personally, before Biden's out of office, because I think that that's the entire purpose of what he's in there for. And I'll do a video later today on that and show you some of the ridiculous crap that you need to see that's recently occurred with him. But let's get into what happened in London, because this is a test run for what's going to go down. They usually do test runs. We've seen test runs in America. They did one in New York, I believe, last summer. They do them right off the coast on Plum Island, where I've talked about, where the government does experiments. It's where they used to do the experiments with the CDC and the Department of Homeland Security on animals. That's why these weird animals, mutated animals, would wash up on shore. Everyone would be like, what is that? Whoa, Freak Island, huh? And think it's a big joke. It's because they were trying to do mutations on animals. And guess what? Now they're trying to do it on humans. Or they already are and already have. So this power outage, what's interesting about it is that it's not just a power outage. They actually shut the internet down, which is something you might say, I don't understand. Would the internet be down when the power's out? Well, when the power's out in your home, obviously the internet's not going to work, your home internet, because your router is plugged in and your modem is plugged in to the wall, so you won't have power, right? But your phone will still work. You'll still be able to go on your phone while the power's out, while you have the time, and you'll be able to access the internet. So a lot of zombies will still be able to function because they still have their phones, and that's really all they care about. This test run that they did, they shut the internet down. And as some of these headlines say, it caused chaos during this test run. It says thousands of Londoners spent a night without power after substantial fire and cable failure hit supplies across 37 postcodes and brought transport links to a halt. The outage ripped across London, causing chaos as internet and lights went out. So it wasn't just power. Like I said, it was also the internet. When you get to the point where the internet is completely offline, that's what's going to cause these people to go rabid. Okay? And then when they start realizing eventually when they do this for real, and food and water are part of the problem, and heat, because there's a chance they do it. I would think they would do it more towards the winter, but if they do it in the summer, of course, it's the same thing. It'll be very, very hot for a lot of people, and that'll affect their behavior and their mood as well. So large areas of London were hit by power cuts yesterday. I like how they say power cuts, not power outages, power cuts. Like they just cut the cord deliberately to do a little test. That forced key transport links to close and left thousands of homes and businesses without electricity. A high voltage cable failed and a fire broke out at a substation in East London, causing knock-on problems for several tunnels under the Thames and the Docklands Light Railway. The substation fire broke out just before 1 and was brought under control around 6. So it was offline for 5 hours. So doesn't seem like a big deal, of course. We've all lost power just for hours before for no real reason, or they're doing something, or somebody hits a telephone pole or something like that. So why would this be kind of a big deal? Because of the amount. This is how you know it's a test run, because 38,000 people were without power and internet. The Blackwall and Limehouse link tunnels in the east of the city closed due to a loss of power, but reopened during the evening. Around 5,000 people were left without electricity in homes and businesses, with some outages continuing through the night. Locals reported the power cut had reached as far as Wimbledon and Cricklewood, blah, blah, blah. UK Power Network said the blackouts were caused by a fault on a high-voltage underground electricity cable. So that right there, to me, from everything I've experienced in researching power outages, grid shutdowns, and things like that, makes it sound more and more likely that it was something that they deliberately did. It wasn't like a plane crashed into a power station or a car drove into a power station off the side of the road, where, you see those power stations on the side of the road and they're fenced in. And it doesn't even look like there's any security on it. Of course, there isn't, because they don't want any security on it. But the fact that it's underground is just even more suspicious, of course. So Londoners were left confused with their computers switched off, and traffic lights went dead around 12:30. So that right there tells you that it's likely was an EMP test. Computers went down as well. One man wrote, "This was significant. Looking outside of my window, and I have a view. Everything was KO, including the DLR, up at least 3-4 stations from here." He added, "First power cut in London since I've been here, but nothing in the news yet." Another post on Twitter, "Been struck with the DLR because of power cut today is not my day," blah, blah, blah. So they're going through people's responses, and this is what they like to do. They study people's behavior. How do people respond to certain situations? You just saw it with Event 201. Whatever you want to call what just occurred. Okay, now that went on for a long period of time, but look how long it took for them to actually say, interesting, how far the pushback finally, after 2 years, there was starting to be a lot of pushback. So they diverted attention over to part 2, or I like to call it phase 2, which is what's going on in Russia. Phase 1 complete, but phase 1 not over. Phase 1 is not going to end at any point, because people are going to continue to line up and get the old boosty boo. Now, I have a video up on the website about that. If you're not familiar, there is another one that's out there. So check out the website for that video, because obviously I'm not allowed to talk about it here. Only Russell Brand can talk about it, because he's a celebrity who's been put into the quote-unquote truth movement, even though there's no truth over there, for a reason, because he'll talk about the magic potion and things like that, and use the actual words, which we can't even use, all of us who actually speak truth. And of course, the agenda that they try to spin is big pharma and big money. They don't try to spin what's actually in it and what the problem is. That's where we come in, and that's why we get censored. So that's over on the website. But anyway, that's a test run, right? Those are things that they do. They go live like Event 201 did, and it becomes a real thing. But they like to watch and see how people respond and behave. So they saw by doing this during this test run in London that a lot of people were losing their minds, because it wasn't just a typical power outage, because people were struggling with the fact that the grid wasn't just off, but the internet was down and they could not connect. Once the internet came back on, this is when they were watching, engaging at people's responses, because this is when people went online and tweeted about the power outage and what happened and where's the news on it, and they wanted to know what occurred and why they weren't allowed to go on the internet for a few hours and why their computers shut down. because, they had no idea. Had it just been a normal power outage, they probably wouldn't have went to Twitter and complained about it, because they probably would have just continued about their day and their zombie things that they do on the internet. But because the internet was down for a while, they went online to complain about it when it came back on, saying they wanted an explanation, because these people cannot live without the internet. So this is a test run. And these are test runs that we've seen over and over and over the years. We're going to see a massive shutdown of the grid at some point. And I believe personally it's going to be during this administration with Biden, because they're setting it up for that. They're setting it up so that people aren't surprised when it happens. And again, I'll cover that in a video later today where I have to show you some of this ridiculous stuff that Biden's doing. But this occurred over in London. There's no media coverage of it anywhere. Just articles, just newspaper articles or local, UK articles about it. Now, you'd say, well, why do they need to cover it? Well, 38,000 people is a pretty large amount. I mean, I get it that the headlines are going to be about the charade going on over there in Ukraine. But, and of course, Will Smith, of course, that's got to be in the headlines too. But they don't want people to know when they do test runs and dry runs. The people will let you know because they'll talk about it. They'll tweet about it. And then small news outlets will talk about it too. But they are doing test runs on this all over the place for the big event. And there is going to be one. I know people still want to go, well, that's not going to happen. They are literally telling you that the grid is not protected in this country. Over and over and over again. We've heard about it for a decade now. Just like we heard about the potential of an outbreak for a decade. And people were like, it'll never end up happening. And it happened. It will occur. The question is, how long will the grid be off and how much food will people have to survive? But be ready, be prepared, and look for things like this and watch how people respond, because that's what they do. They watch and see if they can cause chaos with this. They want to cause chaos. They want a purge-like situation to occur from this, and it likely will. Because in cities where people aren't able to get food and a lot of people don't have stockpile food, because cities are necessarily, are places where a lot of people, go out to eat and are always on the move and on the run. And of course, there are people who have, pantries with food in it, but not longer than a week probably. And when the grid's off, remember, your fridge is off, your water is off. You can't go more than, 2 days without water for the most part. Then you're talking about starvation, and you're talking about literally dehydration, which will kick in fast. So people will be hitting the streets trying to figure out where they can get food and water. And who will come in? Big Brother will, with his Soylent Green. But that's likely in the works as we speak. So London, they had a huge power outage. You should be aware of it.